Hey guys, welcome to our first ever Instrumental Innovations webinar series. Here we're going to dive into sterile processing, uncover the latest trends, technologies, and leadership strategies that shape the future of healthcare operations. I'm your host, Brian North, and today we're going to explore the theme of resourceful SPD leadership. What does that mean? We're going to dive into that, talk about that, and then we're going to talk about navigating the complexities of the Sterile Processing Department. Joining us today, we have two esteemed guests with us, Cinco, Mark Walterbach and Clayton Tyler. I'll give it over to them, let them tell you a little bit about themselves, and then from there we'll dive right in. Mark, go ahead and start us off.
Thanks, Brian. So my role at Asenco here is to handle our strategic partnerships. So as we grow and look to advance our technology and provide more resources to the sterile processing world, I'm helping develop those partnerships and make sure that we're, truly developing our software to the maximum capabilities using partners who have expertise in other areas that we can incorporate into our world. So looking forward to discussing all things sterile processing. Former sterile processing manager myself, been in healthcare over 20 plus years, and I think SPD just has a huge task every day and can use all the resources they can get. So looking forward to discussing that more with you guys today.
Great. Thanks, Brian. My name's Clayton. I come from sterile processing. About 13 years, I've held a variety of different roles in sterile processing and the OR, from a scribe tech to a facilitator to a supervisor. Now at Asenco Health as a data specialist, helping health systems clean up their data and provide analytics and, a tracking system for all of their medical supplies. Looking forward to discussing with you guys today the new trends in SPD and really having an in-depth conversation around it.
Okay. So with that being said, I want to start it off with a big question to kind of get the balls rolling. And the question is, if you started a new job today and it was back in the SPD role, I wish I had when I was working in SPD, ... Mark, start us off. What would you wish you had if you were back in SPD today?
So yeah, Brian, that's a big one. What I wish I had day one was like 10 years of experience under my belt, but that's that's not possible. You learn so much just by being in it and doing it every day, and something new happens every day. But I think just from being in other areas of healthcare for so long throughout my career, I've seen, the way a lot of other departments, handle their business. And some of those things I just always wanted to take into SPD when we talk about just looking at process improvement as a whole. Sterile processing is an assembly line. It really lends itself to lean principles, that approach of, how do we make ourselves more efficient, reduce waste, and all those pieces. So when we talk about technology, do SPDs have the technology they need? There's a lot of great stuff out there, but are hospitals, companies investing in that infrastructure? And that leads you to automation, taking the manual tasks out of this. I think one of the biggest challenges I notice in SPD is just from the beginning, we expect so many people to know so many things. And in many ways, it's unrealistic to take a new person in their first 6 months and expect them to be an expert on thousands of instruments, hundreds of different trays, vendor trays, scopes, all those different things. So how do we put more resources at their fingertips? How do we give them better technology to identify different instruments? How do we, empower them to make the right choice in a moment where maybe they don't have people around them to help them, At every point, somebody ends up working in an empty department in SPD, it feels like, because it's a weekend, it's an off shift, it's a holiday. And how do they make those right choices? And I think, technology, tools, resources, online, tracking system, all those things play into it. But then also just automation. How do we take some of those manual tasks away so that they have time to focus on the more critical steps? When you look at other areas of healthcare, whether it's supply chain, a lab, a pharmacy, none of those are 100% manual processes. And oftentimes, aside from our sterilizers and our washer disinfectors, it's SPD is extremely manual. Touch this
True.
instrument, inspect this instrument, identify this instrument. Extremely manual, time and time and time again with all the repetition. So how do we take little things off? Washers that unload themselves. That was like groundbreaking when I was, first getting started. It's like to not go over and have to burn yourself on a hot washer to get it unloaded in a timely manner so that you could get the next one in. And instead, you got people banging on the glass on the other side of decontam saying, "Get those out of there. We're backing up over here." So just little things like that. Those are the first things that come to mind for me, just because, when you have critical tasks in any process, you want to be able to give your people the right amount of time and attention to those details, as opposed to worrying about all those other distractions and headaches and things like that. So anything you can do to automate those processes, to me, is a win for the department.
Okay. Same question for you, Clayton.
Great question, Brian, and very well said, Mark. Like you said, it would have been nice to step right in and have, years of experience, but that's not the reality. I think that, I'll take it, the other direction, and, the why behind, what we're doing in sterile processing. It's easy to pick up a tray and have somebody kind of guide you through learning instrumentation, but an important piece is, being an advocate for the patient. We're here in sterile processing to help patients get better, and really truly understanding what your role is, and improving the health of an individual and your community or region is super rewarding. So when you do get the understanding and perspective of like helping individuals out, it gives you a little bit more passion to your career, and that turns it from a job to a career, and you develop passion and skills, and then you really understand the why behind what you're doing. That goes a long way. You seem to notice that staff retention, when there's an understanding about being an advocate for patients, is something that you'll see staff retention, and those individuals will try to find themselves through leadership and kind of be the best tech they can be. So a lot of the understanding of what we're doing, really leaning into those individuals that are there for a career. Like I said, I really think that it's more than just a job. When you really dive into the why behind what you're doing, it gives you real purpose.
Okay. Sounds like what I'm hearing from both of you guys is that we're talking about two main things that comes to mind for me is analytics and automation. So to first kind of dive off up into the automation, when we're talking about automation and sterile processing, what exactly are we talking about with automation? I'm going to hit Clayton with that one first. When I say automation in the sterile processing world, what am I talking about with automation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, we could take washers, for example. Like Mark said, 10, 15 years ago, the SPD space was much different. Things are changing and evolving almost every day. So just having, washers is critical for cleanliness of instruments. Removing the debris before your sterilization load is critical to sterile processing. So when you remove some of the like hands-on, like Mark was talking about, and you are able to use automation like washers or a sterilizer, it really ensures that that you're reducing microbials and the debris and everything was adequately cleaned before your next steps on the clean side. So having automation with washers, sterilizers, cart washers, things like that is going to improve the SPD tech's day greatly.
Okay. Mark, is there anything else that comes as when you say automation? Is there other things that come to mind when you think about automation in the sterile processing world?
Yeah. So I think, as we're focused on leadership here, right? So when we talk about, those are the tools that your frontline people need.
Right.
The equipment, the process improvers, the bringing up that level of quality of work. But then, from a management perspective, it's all about how do you track the quality of that work? How do you track productivity? How do you do all those things? So having the right system and the right information from that system, at your fingertips helps you really make decisions every day. Whether it's, do we have the right amount of staff? Do we have the right amount of instruments? Do we know our priorities for the day based on the schedule? And are we ready for any potential changes? So Another part of automation is just really leveraging, your technology, and the tracking system is a great example of that. Where,
Mm-hmm.
are you getting reports on quality, on productivity, on capacity, on instrument shortages, any of those pieces? Because as a manager, when you're in SPD, we all know that your first and foremost focus every day is to make sure that the OR and all of your customers throughout the hospital have what they need. And you spend probably 90% of your time just making sure that your staff is getting there on a given day and that they have what they need. And you're managing call-ins, you're managing staffing shortages, you're managing turnover, you're managing the new agency, work that just showed up that day. You're doing all those things. And I think to truly advance, your department and get to a better point where you can better manage all those things, it's all about having that information and the data pieces being automated for you, right? So automating reports that come to your inbox, so that you can sit down and a snapshot see what's going on in your department, in a very objective way, as opposed to just hearing the noise from, a certain shift that maybe they were busier than the rest of them, things like that, Like, there's just so many curveballs that get thrown at you day to day that you don't have time to sit down and really dive into that unless it's handed to you in an easy to digest, in an easy to read format where you can then go decide what is our action based on this information. We're constantly short 5 ortho sets, on Wednesdays. What do we do about that? What does the data show that our opportunities are? So I think all those things like that, where the data and analytics in the background drive that automation to just bring forward the information instead of you having to go seek it out. Instead of you logging in to run a report, instead of you dumping everything into an Excel spreadsheet and spending hours filtering through it to get to a meaningful data point that will help drive, your decision making, whether it's, purchasing more instruments, hiring more staff, all those things. It's just nice to have that there for you. And I think that's another way that you free up time for your management, for your leaders, and give them the right information to act on.
Sounds like what you said to me. So when I hear that, it makes me want to segue right into what our next piece, where we were talking about information. So with automation, if I have the right tracking system, and that tracking system is automated to get me the information I need or the analytics, it sounds like that can free up a lot of the manual work that I'm doing as a manager. So with that being said, you mentioned the analytics of it. So how would a tracking system, or it's going to bring up that next question, is how would the right tracking system help me to get those analytics that I need to help automate, make sure my staff has the correct automation, the correct washers, the correct staffing. So how would the right tracking system do that?
Yeah. So I'll jump in and start with that, just to continue on my thought process there. So if you're capturing the right data
Hmm.
and you're translating that data into the right analytics and reports, you can focus on what matters the most. You can get rid of the noise, you can take out the variables, and you can really get to objective decision making. And when it comes to managing your budget, managing your people and your team, managing time, making sure you're focused on the right thing is everything. And making sure that you can incrementally improve over time, right? Like, nowhere in the world of healthcare ever have, people just throw millions of dollars at a problem to make it go away overnight, right? So it's all about incremental improvements. So it's taking the data and the information that has to be captured in totality and with, a complexity and a completeness to allow you to make the right decisions. You can't have partial data sets. You can't have incomplete data. You need to be able to look at things from a holistic level and capture all of that to make the right decisions and to get stakeholders to buy in. And I'll add one more layer onto that. You don't need it just from your tracking system. You need it as a resource from across your organization. You need inputs from your infection prevention group. You need to be managing your risk and quality events in partnership with other groups throughout the hospital, with the OR, with your customers, with risk management. You need to be, having inputs from Epic so that your schedule changes are updated in real time. You need to have that connectivity where you can see how changes and updates on preference cards drive change in instrument needs and flow and volume and capacity. So aside from just having a tracking system that can give you some data information, it's also about connectivity and integrations to make sure that you're getting a holistic approach, and changes that are made elsewhere are being accounted for in SPD as well.
So would it be safe to say that if I had these integrations that were in with the system, it would make it that much more, for lack of a better word, would it make it that much easier as far as getting the information when I have a system where it's not just me that's integrated in the system, if you will, or has access to the system, but rather than infection control having to chase me down or whatever, if they can just see the information for themselves, if they can pull up the information rather than having to track me down, because in the world of sterile processing, it can go from 10 to 2 in the New York minute, depending on what the day is. Are we having a high-level ortho day? Are we short on staffing? Is all of the machines working as they're supposed to? So with that being said, would it be easier if we had our partnerships somehow integrated into that system where they can, not that they can change things, but they can get the data that they need from the system without having to actually go to us 24/7 with that?
Yeah, I think pushing information to people is extremely valuable, right? If you don't have to wait for it and you don't have to send out a request, you don't have to wait for a monthly meeting to get what you need. Leveraging technology to automate that process of delivering it to the inbox. I think Clayton, you can probably, attest to just, being in SPD and having that real-time information from different inputs is extremely valuable. It makes you a more transparent and more highly efficient department.
Absolutely. Like you both just touched on, when you can provide risk management or infection prevention with data and analytics, at the, snap of a finger, it keeps you regulatory ready. It allows you to be transparent with those other departments. It allows you to, really take your SPD to the next level. And then, data and analytics, it allows you to, interpret volume metrics and quality events and help assist your turnaround times and ensure compliance and, really improve, service quality, down the line. So it's important that, analytics and data is really driving your SPD department and being able to very quickly provide other departments, whether it be the OR, risk management, infection control, the information they need to be regulatory ready, and, really assist you during your audits.
Okay. Well, it looks like that's about all the time we have for right now. We'll be back again in our next series with more questions. If you have any questions, shoot them to our website, our Ascenco website. We'll try and get some of those topics on for you. Until then, talk to you later, guys.